and good afternoon. Welcome to this week's Interactive Virtual Experience, or IVX. This is the sixth session in a series of weekly peer-to-peer discussions on practicing during the COVID-19 pandemic. We are honored to have you here with us today. We're here to share best practices from one OD to another as we navigate the uncertainty around us. Our previous conversations have been so insightful, and those of you who are on the previous sessions actually chose the topic that we're going to discuss tonight. We've received a lot of requests for recordings of previous events, and recordings of the first 3 interactive virtual experiences are now live on jnjvisionpro.com, and more will be added every week. If you go to the chat, you'll see a link. A recording of today's discussion will soon be online. On a side note, one of the benefits that I have had over the past 2 months is that I am home enough to remember to water my plants. And so after 5 years of being in Jacksonville, I am finally able to grow flowers without killing them. So if you can see this virtually, these are what I get to enjoy now. So I thought I would, I'm like a proud mama. I get to share that since I've been home watering them. My name is Dr. Carissa Lee, and I'm the head of professional affairs at Johnson & Johnson. And just like you, we've had to pivot our business in the face of this crisis. Our goal is to always be here to support you and your patients. You can take comfort in all that AccuView is doing to help. Our efforts are focused on helping you continue patient care, prioritizing safety at every level, and supporting your practice cash flow. Please feel free to reach out to your local sales rep if you'd like more information. Before we start, I want to go through a little bit of housekeeping. We want to answer as many of your questions as we can. So throughout the discussion, you can submit questions. Just click on the Q&A icon on your bottom bar and submit your thoughts. We'll also answer as many questions as we can, and if we can't get to all of them, we'll collect them and try to get them answered through future communications or through your reps. On these sessions, there have been lots of chat traffic, so please feel free to use the chat module to share comments with other attendees. Just make sure where it says to that you select all panelists and attendees to share your thoughts with everyone. I can't believe that I've been working from home for almost 2 months now, so I am excited to hear tips from today's speaker about how we can get back to that new normal as we start opening back up. So let's get started. I'd like to now introduce you to Dr. Heidi Pham-Murphy. Dr. Pham-Murphy is a distinguished author, clinician, and consultant. She's a partner at Kepler Vision and runs 4 thriving practices in the greater Sacramento, California area, where she's a leader in her community. Dr. Pham-Murphy serves as curriculum advisor for National Career Education and was named 2017's Most Influential Women in Optometry by Vision Monday. Her practice, Visions Optometry, is paving the way for other clinics to reopen by codifying new protocols and embracing innovation. We're so grateful to have her here with us today to share her tips and tricks. Please welcome Dr. Pham-Murphy.
Hello, everybody, and thank you, Dr. Lee. And I wanted to start off by saying thank you, Dr. Lee. Thank you to Johnson & Johnson Vision for really providing this forum for us to share knowledge and hopefully that we can all grow together. And that's really key. I also want to thank my team at Kepler Vision, at iDesigns and Visions Optometry, and all of my friends and colleagues in the medical fields who have helped me and given me bits and pieces of pearls that helps us to kind of integrate that into opening our practice. And so that's really key. And you know, on my note, I am a doctor in Sacramento. I'm also a 3rd and 4th and 5th grade teacher. I am the lunch lady, and I realize my children eat every 2 hours. I've learned to understand why there's 4 recesses in one school day to burn all that energy that they have pent up. So I continue to teach my children, and I continue to get schooled by them at the same time. I realized I was in a meeting with my team one day, and I told the children, okay, mom's in a meeting, I need everybody quiet. But I didn't say that they couldn't run behind me. So they were running back and forth behind me quietly while I was in the meeting. And it really taught me to make the implicit things more explicit. And I think to think about the details and to make the adjustments in life during this time. And that kind of really leads us into our reopening tips of opening our practices as our life has been kind of turned upside down. We're doing different and new things, and life is just not quite as it was. But in our conversation today, we're going to be talking about preparation. And we're going to be talking about the innovation that goes into everything that we do, our processes, our approaches to different things. We're going to talk about how we communicate and how that's really changed, and how it stays the same, the core of it stays the same, and that we need to communicate the same consistent message throughout, okay? Now we're going to start off our session with the first topic, which is preparation, and we'll start off with a poll. So let's bring up the first poll, and if everybody could chime in their answers. The question is, I am confident my practice has the proper plan and equipment to successfully reopen. So strongly agree, we somewhat agree, neither agree nor disagree, somewhat agree, or strongly disagree. So if you could please put in your answers, and we'll look at the poll results and cover the first topic. So most of us somewhat agree. So that's not bad. That's a good starting point. Some of us strongly agree. Some of us agree, disagree. Some of us are nervous and we don't know where we're at. And so hopefully we can assist with that in our first topic, and we can take down the poll right now. We had leaders in that area sit and develop a protocol. And it became really a living document that we all shared, we modify, so it continually adjusts and change according to the environment and the different changes that's going on with what we're doing. We, for our team, we have a staff of 60 people across our 4 offices. And so we didn't bring everyone back at once. We gradually are bringing people back. And as we bring people back slowly, we we have an initial team of people who developed the protocol. We had a little rehearsal day where we actually imagined our patients flowing through the office and what they're touching and where they're at and what room they're in and how we're going to keep that room and those people safe in the room. And so those were all kind of really critical things for us to do. And to make everyone feel safe. And then the final protocol that came out of it. So the final protocol is done for a couple of reasons for us. Obviously, it's to ensure the safety of our team, of our patients, of everyone involved. But we really developed a protocol to make things run smooth, to minimize the amount of time our patients spend in the office, but maximize the effectiveness of the time they're there. So kind of to get the biggest bang for their time that they spend in our clinic. And so that really makes a difference for us. And those preparation processes include preparations before appointments. So we'll talk about that. So before our appointments, as patients call in, we have discussions. We have discussions when patients call to schedule their appointments. Our scheduler will talk to our patients. They tell patients that we're going to be asking COVID questions. So we ask questions on COVID symptoms, and some of those questions are pretty the normal stuff you would hear at the hospital. So within the last 2 weeks, did you have a fever? Do you have a cough? Do you have shortness of breath? Do you care for someone with COVID? Are you under quarantine? Are you being tested? So if somebody falls under those categories, we ask that they delay their appointment unless it's an emergency. And if it is, sometimes we'll use telehealth to kind of manage those patients. And we also let people know, please come with a mask. You'll be expected to wear a mask when you're in the office throughout the entire clinic. If you don't have one, we will offer you one at the door. Other things we did is we told patients to call when they arrive. So don't come into the office. We've kept our doors locked, and that way we're controlling the amount of traffic of people arriving into the office. And we're doing more detailed things, like we're making, during our confirmation call, our technicians actually call and make sure the medical history form is complete and up to date. Make sure we have an understanding of why our patients, what are they wanting? And I think sometimes we don't ask that until in the exam room, or once we're done with the exam, we ask, okay, do you want glasses? We're asking that straight ahead at the get-go. So what is it you're looking for? Are you looking for eyewear? Are you looking for sunwear? And if they are, we may prep that out for them based on what they've worn, based on what they look like, what their face shape, and even have conversations as to what they want. So all of those things kind of minimize our patients' exposure time in the office. So once our patients arrive, they remain in their car. They'll give us a call. We'll let them know when it's safe to come in. And once they come in, they're brought straight into the pre-test room. So we try to minimize their exposure out in the open spaces. And so that's kind of really key. In the exam room, for me personally, it's trying to bring warmth into a very cold and sanitary space. And so I come in as this masked person. My patients may recognize me. They may not know who I am. They might be new. We've been getting a lot of new patients come through. And the trick is to bring that warmth in. And I think it's the conversation, it's the body language. We can't shake hands. We're not hugging anybody. We're not even high-fiving or elbowing anybody. So sometimes, I'll just come in, it's your voice. Hopefully that people sense that warmth coming from you. And just pay attention to the little things. For me, one of it's a little thing, but patients feel cared for, is as I'm bringing the phoropter in front of my patients, I say, well, let me know if your mask fogs the phoropter, because I can certainly wipe it down, or we can put a tissue between your mask and your face so that it doesn't fog up as much. So all of those things are just little kind of detail things that we think about under this new normal, and I'm really trying to create a new wow under a new normal. So that's what we're doing in terms of our preparation. We're also, in terms of appointments, we're really looking at spacing our appointments out and scheduling appointments. For us, initially, we opened up on May the 4th. We scheduled patients every hour. That's after our kind of dress rehearsal. So we schedule patients every hour so that we can kind of get the flow down, and the entire team got the flow down to kind of understand how patients flow through. And we have a couple of subspecialty clinics in our practice. We have a special testing clinic for medical eye testing. We have our specialty contact lens clinic. We have our dry eye clinic, which we're trying to develop safety protocols for, because we're doing a lot of lipoflow and a lot of things that can potentially have splatter. So we're looking at how we're going to develop safety protocols for that. So we did allow ourselves extra time. Every clinic creates its own scheduling based on the practitioner and the team who comes with the doctor, what they think they need. And so those are all kind of really important things that are out there. We also started scheduling appointments for everything, which is not a bad concept. We're scheduling dispensing appointments. We're scheduling styling appointments. We've always scheduled contact lens trainings. We're scheduling even frame adjustments and repairs. That helps the flow of the day, and it helps us to kind of have an expectation of who's coming. So scheduling appointments is really kind of a key thing. The next topic is frame sanitization. So how our team does it is our teams, they're experts. They're experts in their field. They're stylists. So when you come in, they'll style you. So they'll pre-select frames for you. They'll have a conversation with you to see what you want. And so that helps us to control the number of frames that patients are trying on, because every frame that is touched needs to be sanitized before it returns to the board. And so we have a tray that we set aside. If our opticians can't get to it, they'll put the frames that have been touched there, and all of those go through a sanitization process before it goes back to the frame board. The sanitization of our pre-test room and our exam room, I think that's something that in our field we're pretty experts in. Now we're spraying down the chairs and the handles a lot more frequently, but we normally clean everything else to prevent spread of anything. So we're doing a lot more detail. We haven't compromised any of our procedures, so we're doing Goldman tonometry, and we're going through the sanitization of the Goldman tip. What we do is I go between two exam room, and the tip goes into a hydrogen peroxide soap for 10 minutes. And one of our doctors found that protocol, and we decided that was the protocol we wanted to do. So it goes through that process, and then it's rinsed and allowed to dry and put back on before the next exam. And so now when we started out with the 1 hour, by the end of the first week, we were all ready for more. So we actually started speeding up. So we increased in the primary eye care clinic to every 30 minutes. And at this point, we have 2 of our 4 clinics open for patient care. The other 2 clinics are open for dispensing and contact lens ordering. And we're actually, we're doing pretty good. We're at about 60% of our usual production. And so there's a lot of promise. Of course, there's a lot of pent up demand for products as well. So patients are coming in and getting their contact lenses. So that's kind of where it's at. And so that kind of covers our entire preparation process. The preparation really is to ease the minds of everyone and to get us into the mindset of a new normal and help us to flow through our practice and thrive and really succeed.
Great, and you're right, it is a new normal for all of us. I think we've been using that phrase a lot, but you know, it's a different world when your eye doctor comes in, you know, masked and gloved up and no handshaking, especially for new patients. So it is important to help them understand all the things that you're trying to do to care for them when they can't necessarily see you smiling at them. It is something that we're gonna have to think about how we take care of them. There's a lot of questions that you actually did address, so that's the good news. We do have a lot here. So things around, for example, IOP, you were saying that you do Goldman tonometry and your protocols for disinfecting the probes. There are a few questions about frames and disinfection and UVC. So one specific question is about sanitizing frames without damaging them. Have you guys looked into that in your practice?
We have a variety of frames, anything from plastic, metal, wood, gold, titanium frames. So we have a variety of frames in our practice, and our staff use a variety of methods. A lot of the staff they're using alcohol wipes to wipe it down. We also have the hypochlorous spray that works really well, or just good old-fashioned soap and water for 20 seconds like we would our hand washing. So those are the those are the methods that we use in our clinic. And we do not use UVC, although that sounds like a tantalizing procedure that's available, but we don't use that procedure in our clinic.
Got it. One of the questions is around contact lens fittings and training. So you said you were doing that in your office. So what protocols have you guys set up?
In terms of our contact lens fitting, if it's a previous patient, obviously they do all their own insertion removal. Before I would insert lenses in patients just to make it faster or just to give that extra service, but everybody's doing their own. And the question on contact lens training, obviously I mentioned earlier that we're really asking what patients are wanting. So if someone is interested in contact lenses, we're going to have the discussion ahead of time with them. There are also great resources on J&J Pro that gives a little lesson on insertion removal. I think that's really good for our patients to see ahead of time and just to kind of get the thought down. We have a doctor in our clinic who is a contact lens specialist. She's looking at I think she's video chat trained her patient on inserting a scleral lens of all things. She's looking at getting one of those, so we would wear a face mask and one of those shields that would come down to protect our trainer from splatter. And so that is coming. And so then as that arrives, we will be starting and getting more ramped up on our new contact lens fits.
That is good to know. So one question about patients, do the patients call, or do the patients who call ask in advance about your sanitary procedures?
You know what? We don't have too much of that. That's because our opening conversation talks about it. So we like to be at the forefront of it, so we're going to mention it to them. It is also mentioned in our emails and our social media, different postings that we do that talks about the fact that our first priority is our patient safety. And so those are the things that we've been kind of assertive about. And so when patients call, I don't get too many calls of patients asking of that. What we do is we find that we are reminding patients of it more often at this point.
Yeah, so it sounds like you guys are being really proactive about that. So one attendee, their exam room doesn't have any windows. Do you recommend an air purifier? Have you looked into that at all?
I don't have an air purifier for the office, although personally I do use an air purifier that has a UV filter through it. It runs a kind of an LED UV light, and it does well for my home. My son has asthma, and he tends to get sick a lot, so I use that personally at home. I don't have anything in the office, although that would be a great idea to bring that into the office. That company, obviously, because it has that UV filter, it does have bacterial and antiviral, although we don't know what it does with COVID because it's not studied, but it has that potential to be helpful in that aspect.
Good. Okay, two more quick questions as I'm going to move us on given the time. One quick question is, are you keeping the exam door open during your testing?
My exam rooms are pretty decent sized. At this point, I am not keeping them open. I'm wearing a mask, my patient's wearing a mask. So I close the exam room door at this time.
Okay. And last question is, what spray in particular are you using to sanitize? So peroxide, alcohol, commercial antiviral, bleach?
Hypochlorous. It's a little bit on the pricey side, I think. And so that's one good way. Good old fashioned soap and water will clean things pretty well. And alcohol wipes are available in our clinic for use, and we wipe down surfaces. And
Great information. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic, and we'll start that one off with a poll question.
Okay, so our next topic is about innovation. And so the poll question is, I'm excited about the opportunity to develop innovative practices and this is you can choose multiple answers in this category. So the areas of telehealth, refraction, contact lens trials, insertion and removal training, frame shopping, or frame repair, or multiple. So we'll give everybody just a minute to make their selection, and we'll take a look at the poll results as it comes in.
Okay, let's bring up those poll results now.
Okay, so telehealth and insertion and removal training seems to be our top two, refraction and contact lenses. So we're interested in all of those areas, but telehealth seems to be one of our biggest hitters right now that we're all interested in. And so that's really good. So we'll take the poll down and we will talk about our category of innovation. And it truly is challenge that brings on innovation into every field, and including our profession as well. We need to really evaluate everything we do, big and small, to meet up with this new normal that we're living in. From the waiting room areas, how do we minimize contact with surfaces? We're eliminating magazines and toys and surfaces that we can't manage on a momentary basis. I'm directing patients to please have a seat. It sounds very nice, but I'm saying sit down so you don't touch anything. So we're directing patients to sit down and at a styling table so that they can be actively helped and styled. Little things like we're having buckets for community pens, so clean pens and a bucket for dirty pens, ones that are used, or we're using one pen and cleaning it up after everybody, so that way we can manage that surface. So those are kind of little things that we do. For our office, we're looking at curbside frame repair and adjustments. So it's incorporating ideas from other industries. So everybody's curbside picking up. So we're gonna curbside fix your stuff. So we're fixing glasses, we're making adjustments curbside. We'll bring out your contact lenses to you, to your curb. Just come in and call us. And if there's multiple cars, we'll ask what car, but usually there isn't. There's about 1 or 2 cars. And so we'll do all of that. And we've also expanded the use of technology that is kind of already in existence. So telehealth is something that I think that is in existence, and that we know that we all need to expand on that area. Now for our practice right now, we're really using lots of video chats with our smart devices and text messaging at this time. I know there's a lot of new telehealth platforms that are emerging. One of the things that we find is dual entry. So we have to kind of, enter it into multiple places. And so, so right now that's where we're at. And I'm sure that's going to evolve and change as we evaluate the technologies that are out there and find out what works for us. We're also doing teleframe styling and telelens consulting. So it's not just the doctors who are video chatting. Our team is also chatting by video. So some of our patients who are in need of eyewear will have a little phone consult that you need something. You would call someone, say, hey, look, this is what I need. This is the color I like. This is the shape. Look at my face. Here's my size. And we'll pre-select frames for you prior to your arrival. Lens consulting. And so as we talk to patients about their lifestyle, and everyone's lifestyle has kind of changed. A lot of us are working from home. And so that's kind of something that we're really sensitive about in terms of asking patients and making sure that we address that. And talking about lenses that are designed for their new lifestyle that's going on. Digital refracting system. So we use a digital refracting system, which allows us for that physical separation between us and our patients a little more. So from the pretest room, we have the auto refraction that pulls the data into the exam room, and it pulls it right into the phoropter system. We do the refraction, and instead of hovering, and I'm not a very big, tall person, so instead of me trying to hover myself over patients, I'm sitting a good 2 to 3 feet away from them, refracting them digitally, and then pulling that data through to the EHR, which makes it nice because it eliminates transcription errors, but it also decreases scribing time for me to type all that in. We also look at, and we've used for quite a few years, measuring devices for PDs. So when we think about our optician team as they're using the pupillometer, as they're measuring the seg heights, they're coming in a little closer to patients. And so we've utilized measuring devices in the past. We've evaluated several. We've been using one for many years, and so that's our staff. They're used to that, and so that's their comfort zone now. Now that is the new normal. It's not, at least for us, it is. That's really critical. But innovation is really about being agile and adjusting quickly because things are changing constantly, and especially in the environment that we're in today. And we make those changes as we get feedback from our team daily, momentarily, weekly. We're making changes, and innovation is about being agile and being flexible and kind of thinking outside of our box and looking at how other fields and other professions are doing it and how we can incorporate it to make it work for us. So that is our kind of covering our area about innovation.
Yeah, so it does require us to be agile. I think sometimes we go on autopilot, and this is a time where we have to think about everything that we do. And I liked what you said about your living document that changes during the last section. So we have a few questions. Let's see here. There's a few questions that have come up around UVC, and I know that specifically around, what role is UVC going to play in disinfection? I know that you said that you don't currently use UVC to disinfect in your office. So what I'll do is pose this back to the chat traffic, and then make sure that when you guys are chatting with each other is that you're selecting all panelists and attendees, not just all panelists. And then I'll let you guys have a sidebar about UVC. Let me move to the next one. If a patient called for contact lens replacement during this time, during the pandemic, and they're due for their annual exam, what are you telling them?
Thank you for that question. That's a good question. So during the first several weeks of the pandemic, we were renewing and extending prescriptions with listing those patients to bring them back for their annual once we are up and running again. And I think that that situation is really case by case. So if our patients, if we look at their track record of good ocular health, ocular surface health, and if they're running risk factors or if they're nervous, if they're scared, I may extend that prescription for another 3 months, give them another box of contact lenses to carry them through that time, and then bring them back and put them on a list for examinations. If a patient is historically not a compliant patient, or if they have changes in their vision, they're coming in for an exam. Or if they haven't come in a few years, which we have lots of that kind of going on, 3-4 years, patients call, suddenly there's a pandemic, everybody's worried about their vision and they can't see. So we just kind of gauge it case by case. And I think us as clinicians, that's kind of what we do best. We know our patients, we know their habits, and we know what we need to do to take care of them.
Great. One question about what you said about limit your prescribing time, or the EMR. I'm not sure if that was prescribing time or scribing. Okay.
Limit the time it takes me to enter I'm a pretty fast typer, but to key in a prescription in and to make a mistake, that data pulls straight from the phoropter into the electronic health record, so I don't have to pull the phoropter and look at those numbers and double check, because I want to make sure I have the numbers correct. And so that's the convenience of those types of systems. If they have the capability to pull and populate your electronic health records, and it can populate even with the visual acuities that you save in there. For me, sometimes I will prescribe a distance pair, and I'll generate a computer prescription, and it will create multiple line items and allow me to make multiple treatment plans for my patient without having to sit and key and type and repeat everything.
Great. Going back to the pupillometer that you were using, so what are you using and how are you measuring things like seg height? Or maybe it does it for you.
We use the Opticam in our practice. We've also looked at auto at one point, but we're using the Opticam. That's kind of our preferred. And with the Opticam, it's able it has a lot of user nuances. And so you really kind of have to train out a lot of those little user nuances. But our team, when we first had it, we compared it up against our PD measurements and our OC measurements to make sure that we are consistent across both methods, each individual, before they are able to use it consistently and to use it as data. But we use Opticam. It measures, it'll measure a pupillary distance, a monocular pupillary distance. It'll measure a seg height. It'll measure panoscopic tilt, vertex distance. It'll cover all of that data that we need to anything from the most extravagant lenses down to the basic PD.
Good. It sounds very fancy. Now, one question about your slit lamp. So are you using any barrier during that slit lamp exam?
Yes. So before we had a small kind of a breath barrier, and we got a much larger one. Some of the companies were giving it away complimentary, so they were giving it away one per practice. And so it is a bigger breath shield. Some of the challenges I find is some of the breath shield have a little bit of opacity to them. So it's kind of it's not perfectly clear. It's a little translucent. So you kind of have to peer around it to kind of, as I'm bringing in the probe, where I didn't know I was just looking right there to bring in the tonometer tip, I have to kind of look around. I've seen some of the doctors use, plastic is really hard to come by right now. I have a brother who uses a lot of plastics, and I can have him cut this to size for me, but it's tough to find the material right now because everybody, when you go to the grocery store, those sheets of plastic, so plastic is in high demand at this time.
Maybe he needs to start another joint venture with you then.
I think so.
Oversized slit lamp breath shields, that might be good. Okay, last question before we move on. Now, in terms of the contact lenses, are you, let me see here. For first-time contact lens wearers, how are you handling those types of exams?
At this time, I'm handling them as usual. And we're going to, if I know ahead of time, we'll prep for that patient. If the patient, suddenly says, oh, I think I want to do contact lenses, we'll schedule a time. We'll have them watch the video ahead of time on insertion removal. And so that's kind of what we're doing. We're scheduling everything out. We're planning everything. We're having our staff wear masks. Our patients can wear a mask, and our staff can wear the face shield as to prevent splatter. And they don't have to sit so close to patients and to insert and remove lenses.
Okay, and then are you wearing gloves during this process?
What I find is that I'm touching so many different surfaces in the office. I wash my hands before, I wash my hands after. Now, if I go into the slit lamp, when I go into the slit lamp, I put on gloves because I'm going to touch my patient's face, just to give my patients that added security because I'm touching their personal space. But during the exam, I find that if I wear gloves, I'm going to touch more things than I should be wearing gloves. And then I'm going to turn around and touch my patient's face with it. So I go barehanded. And at the point where I go into the slit lamp, that's when I put the gloves on.
Got it. Okay, well, let's move on to the next section. And we'll open this one up with a poll question too.
Yes, so our next section is about communication. And the poll question is, I could use more support with patient communication via social media, email, phone, text, search engines, or office signage. And so we'll give everybody a few minutes to answer that question. And once that's done, we'll bring up the poll results and take a look, see where everybody's at.
Okay, let's go ahead and bring those poll results up.
All right. And the big one is phone or text, and I have a lot of lessons I've learned from that, so I can share about that. But everybody's interested in every category: social media, by email, phone, text, search engines, and office signage. And so let's take the poll down. We'll jump right into that category of communication. And communication is absolutely critical. It helps us to all understand each other's rhythm and where we're all coming from. And for us, it's really setting the expectation for the new normal so that there's not any major misunderstandings between everybody and people don't feel singled out or anything. And for us, we communicate with patients through every single method we can. We communicate by Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. We do email blasts to our patients. That communication started out on the first day we had to close. We communicate with patients by search engines and signage. And so to cover what we do, some of the methods, our key message to our patients in the beginning was that we're here. We may be closed, but we're here. Now, the mistake that I made was I sent out email blast. We have a patient base of 18,000 patients. In terms of my number has always been the emergency phone number, either myself or my husband's number, Dr. Murphy's number. We get maybe 1 or 2 calls a year out of our patient base for emergencies. Now, when the pandemic happened, everyone was scared. And so I sent out an email blast to say, hey, we're closed, our office is closed, and to be into compliance with everything that's recommended. But if you need us, we're here. So for ocular emergencies, it gave my husband's number. And for if you're in need of something, in need of eyewear, you can call my number or text me, please. Well, the first 2 hours, I think I got 42 text messages. It was a little wild. I created a spreadsheet, and the people who were working at that point were myself, my husband, and one of our key office managers. And so we created a spreadsheet, put everybody's name, what they're wanting, what they're needing, and so that way we make sure we follow up on everybody. I think what we found out is that people were hoarding more than toilet paper at that point. They were hoarding contact lenses. And I would text people back, okay, do you have lenses? Do you need them right now? No, I have about another month's supply, but I think I'll need more. Because people were nervous, and that's the sign of the times. We don't know what's going to happen. And so as much as it was fun, but that was I probably should have been a little more clear in my conversation or in the email blast as to why patients should call. One of the things about when you're reopening though is the search engines and the maps. So Yelp or any of the map functions that are out there, a lot of them list us as temporarily closed. Now, we didn't do it on our own. Some of them, I don't know how they came up with that, but they listed that we're temporarily closed. And so going through back and opening that up and letting people know that we're open and that we're here, I think that's really key. For text messaging and everything, sometimes patients everybody's clock is so off. I would get text messages at 2, 3 in the morning of patients who are like, my eyes really hurt. And I said, well, maybe you should go to sleep. I didn't say that, of course, but I was thinking that. So all of those various things are key. Office signage is really important as well. And for us, as on our door, it lists the expectations. We're going to be checking your temperature. Please wear a mask. Call us once you arrive. All of those signages are present and visible on the door so that our patients know what the next steps are. Throughout our entire office, we also have signages that even if it's a simple clean zone sign, it tells patients that this is a clean zone and that we are conscious of cleaning everything and making sure everything's clean. For me personally, for my exam rooms, I've always had flags in my exam room. So after I do an exam, if I have time, I'll personally sanitize everything. And rearrange everything. If I don't, my technician will do that for me. And then a flag is thrown out to signify that room is completely clean and safe for our patients to enter. And so we do that for the pre-test room, we do that for the other rooms. And that way it's really clean signage that communicates throughout. And I think that as our patients kind of watch us flip signs, they realize it's for a reason. We're trying to communicate a message amongst ourselves, and it gives them a little bit of kind of satisfaction in knowing that we're really taking care of them. We have signages at our sinks that tells you the method that you should clean your hands, the 6 different ways that you need to kind of rub your hands together to make sure you get all the nooks and crannies and make sure everything is nice and clean. It should be 20 seconds. So once again, it's really making that implicit explicit, that's what you need to do. Our restroom is cleaned after every use. So we go through and spray it down. And so that keeps it clean. We make sure that there's no issues with contamination in that space. So the physical signs are everywhere. It's in our dispensary. It signifies to patients that we're sanitizing frames. That's please don't put anything back on the board. We're watching anyway, but please don't put anything back on the board. I think that clear communication in the beginning eliminates that misunderstanding at the end. And we continue to evolve and continue to improve how we communicate with our patients. And the other critical thing is communicating with our team that we work with every day. We constantly communicate so we know what's going on in every space, and how can we make it better. And for me personally, delivery of care is a team effort. From the front desk to what we do in the exam, it all needs to be one smooth process and a team process where patients feel like that communication spreads throughout the entire office. And so that's, and communication is something that it's an art, and it's something that we always continue to work on. So.
Yeah, you're right. Especially during these times, you have to be really overt about what you are trying to say, because the reinforcement is really helpful, I think, in making patients feel comfortable and making them feel cared for, especially in your office. I would say maybe that one of the good things that comes out of this is I think about my kids washing their hands. We'll have a whole generation of people who actually do hand washing properly. So hopefully that's one of the benefits of this.
Everybody's birthday every day. Every time you're washing your hands, you're
That's
singing.
right. That is right. It's your birthday every day when you wash your hands. You can sing it to yourself. One of the questions is specifically about cell phone use. So do you allow patients to use their cell phones in your office, or do you have them sanitize their phones?
Well, their cell phones are kind of in their hands just as much as everything else that's on them. I don't like it when patients use cell phones in the office, and I walk in, and if they're on their cell phone, sometimes I'll politely walk out and give them time to finish. But yes, we do permit patients to use their cell phones. We encourage them. There's hand sanitizers around the office. There's alcohol little swabs for patients to wipe anything down, and including their cell phones if they wish. But yes, we do allow, and it is a new world on the cell phone thing, that everybody, I mean, as a mom, I'm in my appointment. Even if I'm in this call, my kids are like, "Mom, where are my baseball shoes?" It's constant questioning that goes on, and I'm sure we can all relate to that that constant information and the need for information that comes with the modern life that we live.
Yeah, so there's a few more questions about, again, thinking about patient care and how close you get to them, and disinfection procedures. So one of them is, do you do direct or indirect ophthalmoscopy with your patients?
I do both, depending on what the need is. And I think, and depending on what I can do for my patients. We tend to dilate every one of our patients, and so that's kind of our protocol in our practices. Or patients are taking OptiMap images, and then I'm looking at their macula in detail with a 78 or 90 under the slit lamp. So we use both. Obviously, direct is a little more challenging, but we're wearing masks. And so if you can dilate your patients and get what you need there, that solves that problem. But there's certain things that a direct will give us that we need. And our goal is to really not compromise the level of care that we're providing our patients, and finding creative ways to go around it and to get it done.
Yeah, that's another good point, is the standard of care. We're still here to take care of our patients. So you have to be innovative, as you were discussing in your last section. So maybe there will be a few new innovations as we emerge from this, specifically around eye care. We've got another question around NCT, OptiMaps, all of those sorts of things. Are you taking any extra precautions in cleaning those, and how are you doing that? Visual field machines, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. So we don't do NCT in our practice. We do Goldman. In terms of visual fields, and once again, we don't want to compromise our standard of care. And so we're really spraying everything down. You can spray the inner bulb down and kind of wipe everything down. Same thing for the OptiMap. as patients, shove their face in there. We can remove that rubber, clean off the inside. It just takes us extra time to do it. But we will do that. So we continue to do those procedures. And right now we're spacing everybody 30 minutes apart. So the next pretest is going to be 30 minutes from now if we start one right now. And so that gives adequate time for drying and evaporation and everything that needs to happen.
Kind of going back to your previous discussion about scheduling patients, you talked about now that you're back up to 60% and you're scheduling them every half hour, right? What's your plan now, or do you guys have a documented plan for how you're going to handle the next few weeks or next month or so?
Yes, and so our initial plan is to continue to do the 30-minute exams, but add a check or an office visit kind of in between, and ramp it up slowly and make those adjustments over time as we get more comfortable. So our clinics here, we have, it's one doctor at a time. We have 4 different locations. We have 2 exam rooms, and we have a dry eye treatment room and a pretest room, and a special testing room and different rooms for different functions. Yes, normally my normal schedule is a patient every 15 minutes. I don't know that I would ever achieve that, but I'm thinking I can eventually probably do a patient every 3 patients an hour. So that would be my goal, or 2 patients and an office visit or a contact lens follow-up.
Yeah, that's good, and hopefully we'll get back to normal pretty soon. What about instilling drops or trying on frames? Are you allowing patients to remove their mask during those procedures or processes?
We haven't had a lot of that going on, but I think patients are stepping, our door just is right to the street. So a lot of our patients are stepping outside, sending a picture. And that's because we're asking patients not to bring any extra guests into the clinic unless it's somebody, if you need care from somebody else, if obviously a child needs supervision or an elderly patient who needs help. But we're asking patients not to bring any extra guests. And the good thing is they can snap photo, or the Opticam, I think, has a function where you can snap it and a bunch of photos and send it to somebody. So patients can step outside to do that. And yes, people do want to see what the rest of their face looks like with the frames on.
Yeah, again, it's that they have to be creative and and trying on something as simple as trying on frames. Let's see here. So you talked about the air filters. I think this is just a clarification. You talked about the air filter that you were using at home. Is that a HEPA air filter?
It is.
And I guess a follow-up question could be would you consider bringing that to the office or something like that?
No, I would really consider bringing that into the office. The only thing that I would actually, because it is a HEPA air filter that has a UV LED light. And if you look at the way it was created, I think it has more potential to do good for us in the clinic. I mean, I use it personally. So, and it's not an inexpensive air filter, but I find it, when you have a child with asthma and if he can sleep with that filter and he hasn't been able to sleep, you're like, hallelujah, totally worth it. So.
Great. Well, thank you for all of those, answering all of those questions. We'll move on to that next section now.
Yes, so thank you, Dr. Lee. So we're going to kind of go away with our key takeaway points on our conversation today. The first key takeaway is prepare for safety and comfort of everyone. Everyone is going through something different now, and everyone's going through something that we may not understand. And so just being prepared and expressing that kindness and that understanding is really key in terms of not only for our team members, but for our patients as well. And one of the other key things that I learned was to really start slow with your schedule. This really brought a lot of comfort to our doctor team, our technician team, our optician team. Everyone was comfortable, and I'm sure our patients appreciate it. They understand that they're special. They're the only ones in the entire office at the moment, and everybody's eyes is focused on them to care for them. And as you get more comfortable with the protocols, you can step on the gas and increase it because we need to. And the last key thing is communicate. And really, communication is not only in clear language, but it's also in listening. So a major part of communication is listening to our patients' need, our staff and our team's need, and making the adjustments, and being able to make those decisions to make adjustments and let everybody know, look, we're all here, we're all in uncharted territory. We're going to make it through together. We're going to make adjustments, and things are not going to be the same day to day. We'll make changes as needed. And if we find something good, we'll go for it. So, and good ideas can come from anywhere, really.
Great. Well, thank you, Dr. Pham-Murphy. And unfortunately, we've come to the end of our time here, but thank you to all the attendees for all of your thoughtful questions. We will continue to listen to your feedback so that we can provide you with helpful events like this. I also want to reinforce that we are listening to you. And on the last few surveys, you said that you wanted to hear more clinical content. So we are holding a virtual clinical education session on presbyopia tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. So look for me on LinkedIn where I have the registration posted, or you can reach out to your local rep for that link. Our weekly IVX series will resume the first week of June. So Wednesday, June 3rd. And if you go to the chat, you'll see a link to register for that event. We'll be taking a look at various perspectives on balancing office efficiency and safety in the new normal. We hope that you will help shape the future of the IVX series with us. So please take a moment to answer one last poll question where you can share what topic would be most valuable for our next event and what time works best for you. Your voice is important to us and we want to stay connected with you. So we'll continue to broadcast these national events, but please reach out to your local rep because we're also holding smaller regional roundtable discussions where you can speak directly to each other on what matters most to you. I'd like to thank Dr. Pham-Murphy for all of her wonderful insights today. Your positivity and your leadership inspires us all. So have a great rest of your day and be well.